So how do you do that in English? It's harder. Because I was saying to the English teachers, we were in a lab, so we're in a part of a teacher laboratory, which we're trying to figure out good methods for teaching reading. And it's hard to show what's in your head cognitively around reading. But we're going to attempt to do that today around some close reading. So when you're reading, you're really going on a journey of thought. You start one place in the novel, and teachers, I'm going to give you this PowerPoint. And you end up someplace else. When you start reading Julius Caesar, you're thinking one thing, but as you learn more about the characters, their motivations, and Shakespeare's themes, you come around to some new thinking. And if you reread it, you'd come around to more new thinking. But the first job of the reader, always, in any situation, is first to read it and make the movie in their mind of what's happening in the story. So you're reading and you're picturing, this happened and this happened and this happened. That's the first thing that you do. Yeah. The second thing, though, and this is mostly what you work on in high school, is zooming in and unpacking the text. That is, looking at, reading it closely to figure out what the author's intent was and how they were able to. You're analyzing the subtext. So here is the teaching point. So this is what I want you to leave here knowing, okay? And that is that readers read closely and notice words that are surprising, important, or repeated in order to understand themes, that is the heart of the story, explored in the text. That's the main thing. So we're going to read for phrases and words that are surprising, important, or repeated to try to understand what the author wants us to know, think, feel, or believe the theme. We're going to use this certain method called SIR, S-I-R, looking for things that are surprising, important, or repeated. And we're going to use a particular instrument to do that. But first, I'm just going to read you this poem. You just don't need to do anything except the first job of the reader. That is to make the movie in your mind. Now I'm going to warn you before I start, this poem is weird. Okay, this is a weird poem and you're going to be a little startled when I first start to read it. Okay? It's called Maybe That's Your Problem Too. Maybe That's Your Problem Too. That's the name of the poem by Jim Hall. He's a college professor at the University of New Hampshire. All my problems, who knows, maybe everybody's problems, is due to the fact, due to the awful truth that I am Spider-Man. I know, all them dumb jokes, no flies on you, and the one about, what do I do with all those extra legs in bed? Well, that's funny too, yeah. But you try being Spider-Man for a month or two. Go ahead. You get those calls from the governor. Governor's asking you to trap some burglar who's only trying to rip off color TV sets. Now, what do I care about TV sets? But I put on the suit, the stinking suit, with the sucker cups on the fingers. And I get my whoops and my little bundle of equipment, and then I go flying like crazy across the town from rooftop to rooftop. Till there he is, some poor dumb color TV slop, and I fall on him and we wrestle a little till I might get him all robed. So, big deal. You think when you're Spider-Man, there's something big gonna happen to you. Well, I tell you what, it don't happen that way. Nothing happens. Governor calls, I go, bring him to police, governor calls again, like that, over and over. I think I try something different. I think I try something exciting, like racing cars, something to make my heart beat at a different rate. But then, you just can't quit being something like Spider-Man. You're Spider-Man for life, forever. I can't even burn my suit. It's flame resistant. So maybe that's your problem too. Who knows? Maybe that's the whole problem with everything. Nobody can burn their suit. They all flame resistant. Who knows? Will you turn and talk and tell which scene in this very weird poem is most vivid in your mind? What part were you picturing as I was reading? Can you turn and talk? Well, I thought Megan's idea was an interesting idea, that maybe someone who noticed has a speech problem, not Spider-Man himself. But that's a good thought. What's your idea? Guys, Alyssa and I were just talking, and I want you to make a note somewhere at the bottom of this. Why would Jim Hall give Peter Parker this speech issue? Like, that's a question everybody that I read this poem to, they think about that. Peter Parker's the name of Spider-Man. Oh, the name of the author, Jim Hall, I think it's at the bottom. So why would he? What's that about? The other thing we were also talking about that you might want to annotate is the idea Spider-Man's name is typed really in caps every time.
Wow.
So think about that and make some notation around that too, okay? So notation around just the speech problem, the speech issue, and also about the capitalization. Because people, all of you as I'm going around listening, are all wondering about that same thing. You choose one of those, okay? One of those. Pick the one you feel most invested in, all right? And turn your paper over. So pick it and then turn this thing over, all right? Now I'm going to take you through the same line of questioning that I modeled, all right? So I want you to write your answers to this. You just need to jot them down, okay? So if you want to go from making the movie in your mind to thinking about theme, here's one way you could do it. So one issue explored in the poem is write the word down. You don't need to write the sentence down, just write the one word down. So if you tell me some things people chose, what did you pick? Identity. What did other people?
Suffering.
Suffering. Somebody else.
Longing.
Freedom, longing, greed.
Dreams.
Dreams. Anything else?
Choice.
Say it again.
Choice.
Choice. No self-acceptance, huh? I'm just teasing you. Okay, now, here's the next question. Stick with what you got. What does the author want you, the reader, to realize, understand, know, feel, or believe about that idea? Like, if you pick dreams, what does Jim Hall want you to know, the reader? What's his point about dreams? What does he want you to know about dreams based on this poem? What does he want you to know about your identity? What does he want you to know about greed? So take a moment to answer that question. What the author wants, what Jim Hall wants me to realize is bleh about whatever word you chose, whatever issue you chose. It's that I already see that, you know, you're ready for more. Because I got kids when I was listening in who are already going right to the theme. Okay? And that's one of the reasons is because this text is in the shallower end of the pool. Okay? So people were picturing all kinds of things. It was very interesting. Megan, yes? She was picturing the narrator or author as a little kid. Like a little kid telling this, because little kids often have that problem with their R sounds. And of course, all little kids want to run around with the cape on. So I thought that was really super interesting. These guys went right to the theme. Over here, we were talking about the idea of Spider-Man coming and dropping down on this guy who's trying to steal his stupid television. He's roping him up. Yeah. So you've already done the first job of the reader, which is just to make the movie in their mind. But the second job is to start to unpack it. We're going to unpack it using clicky pens. You know, these 4-colored pens that look like that? Anytime you come across a line that's surprising, you'll underline it in red, and you'll make an annotation. That means a note. Do they know the word annotation? Annotation's a little note about your thinking, yeah? And anything important in green, anything repeated in blue. Can you get the light so people will be able to see this better? So let me tell you, so right now, teachers, I'm going to model my thinking. In other words, I'm going to do what they call a think aloud, as though I'm reading the poem for the first time. You know what, teachers? Hold off and let me do this first before you give it out. Just hold off for a minute. So listen to this. When I first saw this poem, this is the I do part, the modeling part. Well, the first thing I thought that was surprising, when I first read this, I came across this poem in an anthology, I couldn't read it, I couldn't decode it. I was like, maybe that's your problem too? I'm thinking, what the heck? Somebody here has a speech problem. And then, oh my goodness, it's Spider-Man. So I'm thinking, this is quite surprising that we have Spider-Man with a speech problem as the narrator. Odd, because lots of times you think of poems dry or about flowers or I don't know, not about Spider-Man and not with a speech problem. Anytime I'm surprised by something, I make a note of that. Then, when I came to this line, I'm thinking, is due to the fact, due to the awful truth. Why would being a superhero be the awful truth? Would it be like the glorious truth? The great truth? Like the happy truth? But it says an awful truth. So I thought, well, why is it an awful truth to be a superhero? That's surprising to me. Then this line where he says, but you try being Spider-Man for a month or two. Go ahead. I'm thinking, well, that's kind of like a challenge, like kind of sarcastic. Like, you go ahead, see how you like it. So I wrote that down because I thought that was kind of important. Another thing I thought was kind of important was down here in this part where he says, I fall on him and we wrestle a whittle and I get him all roped up. So big deal. Well, I thought, well, that part, so big deal, seems important to me because I've seen the Spider-Man movies. And I think that Spider-Man is kind of a big deal. So I'm wondering, I think it's kind of ironic, I mean, sort of meaning the opposite of the way it should be, that yeah, being Spidey is a big deal. So why here is he saying, yeah, big deal, I do my job. The other thing I wanted to see what I could find that was repeated, and who knows, and I know, is repeated here. And I'm thinking, I just want to pay attention to that knowing part. What's he trying to know, right? What's he trying to figure out? Who knows? The other thing is, whip off color TV sets. Then he says, what do I care about TV sets? Here he says, distinct suit. And I think there he's emphasizing like, it's so boring. Governor calls you and he calls you again over and over. Like he's repeating these things to give you the idea, it's kind of boring. So those were kind of the thoughts I had in my head. And then I want to ask myself, well, what issues or ideas?
Matt Mulligan to the security booth. Matt Mulligan to the security booth, please.
Might be hiding in this subtext. So as I've unpacked it with Sir, I'm trying to figure out, well, what's the point? What's Jim Hall want me to be thinking about? So sometimes I help myself by using a chart like this. Sometimes words here don't help me and sometimes they do. So I'm looking at this issues commonly explored in literature, and right away I think jealousy really comes up for me, because the part where he's talking about, well, because I've always been kind of jealous of superheroes. Like, I'd like to have superhero powers. I'm kind of jealous, but then I'm thinking, well, no, I better not be jealous of this guy because he doesn't sound like he's liking his life very much. So I can take myself through a sort of a list of questions. If I want to go from the movie in my mind to a theme, well, what's one issue being explored in this poem? I think jealousy is being explored. What the author wants me to know, or realize, or understand about that issue? Maybe don't waste my time being jealous. Jealousy is kind of a wasted emotion because your jealousy may be sort of misdirected. I think that because in the text he's like, yeah, you try it, see how you like it, we're a big deal. So see, teachers, I'm getting to quote the text. And then the idea this gives me about my life is don't waste my time being jealous of other people that I think have a more exciting life. That's what I'm thinking. So now is the part you're going to do with your partner. Can we hit the lights? So teachers, if you'll give out clicky pens, I'm going to give you this poem. I've unpacked the first part. I want you to highlight and annotate, or underline and annotate. Teachers, if you can help me give these out, that'll be good. Give these out, thanks. So I want you to put your name on your paper. And I want you, I've already unpacked the first half of the poem. I want you to start to work with your partner and confer about lines that are surprising, important, or repeated in the second half of the poem. Starting with, you think when you Spider-Man, that's where you're gonna start. And then, but I wanna show you my rule. Teachers, this is like one of my rules for life. Here, let me go back here. Watch this, guys. You see that every time I've underlined in a color, so here these things are repeated because they're in blue. Green is important, red is surprising. But if you underline, you must put a note about your thinking. So this is the way for you to show your work, show your thinking, so that your English teacher could see whether you put it messing up or you're really on target, okay? And of course it's called annotation. But the clicky pen sort of helps you to think about these different things, the SIR method, surprising, important, and repeated. So get going, guys. I want you to underline and annotate surprising, important, or repeated in the second half of the poem. So go for it. And you can confer with your partner. And teachers, we're going to go around and see what's happening.